what's up? Welcome back to a brand new Planty video. My name is Shannon and this is Planted 386. If this is your first time, hi, thank you so much for stopping by and clicking. I really appreciate you. I hope you'll consider sticking around. If you love planty content, I make planty content all over the internet. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, you name it, I probably am there. So if that sounds good to you, I hope you will join me. I am Planted 386 everywhere, all over. This is a new little series that I wanted to start on the channel. If you're returning, thank you so much for being here. You guys know I usually post once a week, but I would like to start adding in a little bit more. We'll see how it goes, but this is going to be part one or episode one of a series I am going to call How I Grew It. So I'm going to take a specific plant each and every week, and I'm going to share with you the tips and tricks, its journey with me, and just how I go about growing these specific plants. I wouldn't call it specifically a care guide, but just my personal tips and tricks on how I've grown the plant. I feel like with care guides, it's a little bit difficult to make specific care guides because everyone's conditions are different. So I am just going to give you what has worked for me and what's been my best practices. If you hear little feet pitter-pattering, it is my dogs running around the house. The whole family is home today as usual, so hopefully that will be all right. And without further ado, let's get into it. So for episode one, I wanted to start with a plant that I've had for a really long time and one that is pretty common and one that you can find in most big box retailers. So this is my black Pagoda Lipstick plant. I'll have the scientific name on the screen for you. And this is actually one that I got from a friend of mine. So this was actually a trade. It is one that I got many moons ago in early days of my plant collection, and she had it in her care, and she said that it just wasn't agreeing with her, and so we swapped. So I will say this is one that has been very low maintenance for me. I'm not sure why it didn't work out for her. I know when I first got the plant, I went ahead and repotted it. And since then, I have never ever repotted it. It has been in the same pot since the day that I brought it home and repotted it. Let me take it out of the cash po. I'm gonna set it on the ground. Just so that I can hold it up a little bit easier for you. As you can see, she's nice and full and lush, and she's currently in a growing phase, as I call it. I do notice with this plant, it tends to grow in stages. So there'll be times where she is just quiet and she's really not doing much of anything, and then there's times where she's growing like crazy. She seems to like to grow in the spring, summer months, and then in the fall and winter, she tends to back off and she blooms for me. So the blooms are very interesting. They're just very interesting. I'll pop up a picture on the screen just so you can see, but it's been a pleasure growing this plant. It's very, very easy. I put her into a chunky soil mixture, and that's pretty much it, guys. Aside from that, she seems to like bright light, bright indirect light. I have her very close next to a window. This is a west-facing window, so it gets afternoon sunlight, and I would say she's, I don't know, maybe a foot from the window. I'll definitely put B-roll in so you guys can see how close she is. She actually needs a different spot because as she's grown, she's sort of all over the place over there. And I feel like if I had her in a spot where she could stretch out a little bit more, she'd probably take off even more. I have thought about repotting her, if I'm being honest, because I do think it's probably time. But nonetheless, she thrives on regardless. When it comes to propagating this plant, I have just recently experimented with propagating, and I will show you the little props that I've taken. But I have propagated lipstick plants in the past, and I find it to be very similar to propagating a Hoya. I prefer to propagate them in sphagnum moss, and I usually cut where I see the little roots. So if I can get you a close-up, let me find something with root right here, for example. Hopefully I can get that in there for you guys. Very similarly to Hoyas, they do have little roots, little tiny roots at the bottom of the leaves. And don't mind my nails, guys. I am a gardener, and so it is what it is. But I will basically take the propagation and stick it in sphagnum where that little tiny aerial root is touching the sphagnum, and usually it will take off from there. I often like to do that so that I can fill out the pot, but with this specific one, I have not needed to do that. It's just filled out on its own. And I noticed that these newer shoots tend to be much thicker than some of the older ones, which tend to be much thinner. But nonetheless, I love this plant. It seems to do very well in ambient conditions. I have never grown this in high humidity or in a cabinet setting. It's always just lived in my living room, which averages about 50% humidity, give or take. And it gets fertilized with every single watering. I treat this plant no differently than any of the other plants in my collection. And so with every single watering, which is usually about every 7 to 10 days, I put a very diluted amount of fertilizer within the watering can that I use to water my plants, and it seems to love it. I find that with fertilizer, to be honest, it doesn't need to be anything super specific or expensive. I will show you the fertilizer that I use in just a moment. And it seems to love it, and it seems to thrive. In fact, the fertilizer that I have been using, once I show it to you guys, you may laugh, you may chuckle, but my plants seem to do the best when I'm using this specific fertilizer. I feel like I get the most growth and the most like flower productivity when I'm using this fertilizer, and it's one that you can find literally at any big box store. I also list all of the products that I love the most down in the description box for you guys, so you can check it out there if you are interested. I do make a small commission if you do purchase off of my links, but if you do, I greatly appreciate it. I am using any funds towards the channel, so just so you know that. But what I love the most about this plant is the coloration. If I'm being honest, it looks venomous. It looks like something that should be in Jurassic Park. I love, love, love these purple backs, the markings, the green on the front. I mean, from any angle, this is one that just commands the space. And I feel like it's one that anybody could grow, no matter where you are in your planty journey. As I said, this is one of the first plants that I got back in early days before I really knew anything about plants. And I would say that this is one that I sort of experimented with a bit. You know, I didn't know exactly what soil to use. I didn't know what fertilizer to use and what pot setting to use. And irregardless, it thrives on. So I wanted to share her with you as my first plant because, like I said, it is one that I got from a friend, which I think something so special about the plant community is receiving plants from friends. It just adds a beautiful sentimental touch to the plant and to your collection. It's like anytime I look at this plant, I always think of the person that I got it from. And I think in general with the planty community, it is a community of sharing and giving and kindness. And that's something that I love about the community so much. So not only is this plant sentimental to me, but it is beautiful, it is common, and it is one that I think would add a lot of life and joy to your space, a lot of bang for your buck, really, without causing you stress. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. These videos are going to be short and sweet. They're not going to be my normal, 40 minutes to an hour long videos. It's just going to be a nice, quick little recap as to what's worked best for me when it comes to growing these plants. With that being said, I'm gonna set her down and I'm going to bring out the fertilizer, the watering system that I'm using and what works for me. And then I'm also going to give you specifics on the amount of lighting. I'm going to measure the light that I am getting by the window, and I'm going to let you guys know that so you kind of have an idea, and I hope that helps. Okay, so when it comes to fertilizer, this is literally the fertilizer that I use for the mass majority of my plants. The only thing that I do not use this on are my lithops and select certain cacti. But I have found that this has done amazing things for my plants in general. Overall, my anthuriums love it. It causes them to bloom like crazy, and my Hoyas. So I think this runs about $6. And I would like to also say that I have tried many other fertilizers, including Foliage Focus, I've tried Fox Farm, a couple others, and I'm being 100% honest with you guys, this works just as good. It comes with this little green scoop, right? We all know the Miracle Grow green scoop. And I will say I do not fill this up to the brim. I usually fill this scoop about halfway. Hopefully you guys can see that. About halfway, and then I dump it into my watering can. I believe my watering can is 1.5 liters, and so I will show you that next, how big the can is. That way you can kind of get an idea of just how much water I'm mixing with. And then we'll get into lighting. Okay, so this is the can that I use. It's, like I said, about 1.5 liters. And I will just take that half of scoop of the fertilizer and I just dump it into this full of water. I will mix it a little bit with it's basically just this mini shovel. I mix, and then that is what I use to fertilize. So a diluted amount of fertilizer for every watering, approximately 7 to 10 days. I do live in Florida, so my conditions tend to be on the humid side. So if you live somewhere where it's dry, you may have to water more frequently. It just, like I said, it really depends on your conditions, which is why I don't want to make this like a general care video, because everyone's conditions vary so greatly. This is just what has worked for me. Okay, when it comes to lighting, I am going to be using this light meter right here. I am going to put the light meter next to the plant, and we're going to see how much light we get in that spot. Okay, so this is where the plant lives. I understand the lighting isn't the best and we will be a little bit backlit, but if I take my light meter here and I just set it right next to the plant, give it a second. It looks like it's reading about 980 lux approximately. And of course, this is going to vary throughout the day. So as of right now, it's probably about 11 o'clock or so. The sun is on top of the house. So as the day goes on, it will get more light as it comes over to this side of the house. But that is pretty much where we're at in terms of lux. It's kind of fluctuating anywhere between 850 to in the 900 range. This is her, where she currently lives. You can kind of see how close she is to the window. She lives pretty close. And I'll go ahead and turn this on so you guys can see. I will say having a light meter around is pretty handy, just so you can kind of get an idea of what you're looking at. But that's it. You guys see the reading right there on the screen. And I will say this is a very easy meter to use. You basically just press the power button and that's pretty much it, guys. You can change modes and you can hold also, like you can save settings if you want, but I pretty much just use it in its basic form. And I think I paid around $12 for this off of Amazon. But I love the way that this plant looks in this corner. I think she's just so beautiful. She adds a lot to this space. And yeah, it's been a really, really easy one to take care of. That's pretty much all I have for you guys today when it comes to how to grow the black pagoda lipstick plant, or shall I say what's worked best for me. If ever you guys have any questions about any of my plants that you see in a video, feel free to ask down below. If you're curious about lighting or fertilizer, any of the above, I'll be happy to share that information. And without further ado, I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks so much for being here. Bye, guys.